Brandy Gillmore, thank you so much for joining us on the Plan Trainers podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is so wonderful to connect with you both.
It's wonderful to connect with you, and we would like to know what you're connected with for your moment of gratitude today.
I think it's just an amazing time in life. Just more and more people are waking up to the awareness of empowerment, reconnecting with plants, the earth, our innate nature. I just thoughts help create our lives. I mean, I'm excited for this time in the world.
It is an exciting time, and more people need to do that. Were you always super connected to that, or did
Oh no.
that kind of change with your experience? Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely not super connected to that at all, actually.
So tell us a little bit about this painful condition that changed your life and how things changed in the world for you.
Absolutely. I mean, this is literally the last thing I ever thought I would be doing. I used to do network engineering and operations, and basically I had an accident, and technically two. I had a car accident and then a fall, and I fell just wrong, just right, however you want to say it. But basically, I went from living a full life to being wheelchair, walker, cane, and in extreme pain. And my doctor saying that there was nothing that they could do for me, and it changed my entire life.
Were you paralyzed? Is that what happened?
I was not paralyzed. I had spinal end plate fractures, nerve lesions, a neurological disorder. I had certain muscle groups that stopped firing. So even at my worst, I could use a walker or cane to get around at very short distances. It was very painful, and it wasn't so I wasn't so stable on my feet, but I was not paralyzed. No.
So it's not uncommon for us in our line of work to hear of people whose doctors say this is just the way it's going to be, especially within the redox life, within the plant-based world. We hear that over and over again. So what was it that made you have the courage or the intuition to look beyond what your doctors said and take your health and your life into your own hands?
Yeah, so many things, but I love that you said that, because during my injury, that was something I thought there are 1.5 billion people who are in pain. How am I ever going to get out of pain? And more people than that even have illness. And so, a long story short, I had gotten into this medical trial. That's what I'd hoped for. Just somebody would discover something new. I would be healed. I went to this medical study, and basically when I got there, they said, we don't expect this is going to work for you. You actually can't be a part of the study. And I was devastated, because it had been like my only hope. And after that, I was just like, I didn't want to live anymore. I was just, I couldn't live in the state that I was in. But then I had this thought, or this voice in my head, that was like, what about the placebo? And in that moment, I thought about the awareness that any research study, there's a known fact that a certain percentage of people can get better from the placebo. They can see some type of improvement. And then the more I started researching the mind, the more I found so many anomalies. For example, people with multiple personality disorder can have different ailments when they're in different personalities. They can have high blood pressure in one, but not another. They can have, I mean, there was even a study of a woman who was medically blind in some personalities and not others, or high blood pressure, blood sugar, asthma, allergies, all of these things. And not only that, we know stress affects the body. And so I started just saying, okay, there's got to be some type of mechanism in the brain for the placebo, stress, MPD. There's got to be a mechanism that somehow helps our body to heal. And so that's what sent me on this journey to say, like, the more I saw the evidence that there was more. And even another one, as far as pain goes, even the awareness that amputees could still suffer from chronic pain, even though they didn't have a limb. So everything just really kept pointing at the mind as having the hidden key to healing.
So you didn't get into that study despite being like, I'd be willing to do it just for the placebo effect.
Well, technically speaking, it was kind of like a feeling of like, let me talk to your manager kind of thing. Like, you had me in this wheelchair, come down here, and you told me. And basically what the doctor technically ended up saying is there had been enough studies to show it was safe. So he basically said, you can get the treatment, but you can't be a part of the study because you're going to ruin our results. And the truth is, he was right. Like, I ended up getting the injections, and it didn't work. And so he was right. But it still left this feeling of like, I'm going to be part of my own study. I'm going to figure this out.
What if him saying that to you created the opposite of the placebo effect to begin with, right? Like he let you down, like he set your brain up to be this will fail.
Yeah. And the thing of it is, though, is I had tried so many things prior to that I thought were going to work. You know, you read
Right,
something, you go, oh my gosh, this is going to work. And then you read
right,
something else and you're like, this is good. So there were so many things, not
right.
only that, but technically speaking, I went through this phase where I thought that the placebo worked because of belief. And I had been like, you know, reading all the metaphysics. I said, all you have to do is believe you're healed. And so I was reading the power of belief and then gratitude for my healing and affirmations and visualization. And I was doing all these things and it wasn't working. And
Mhm,
then I came across something called the open label placebo, which is basically exactly like it sounds. It is open label. So both the doctor and the patient both know it's fake because the label is open. They both know, and it still can work. And that really helped me to understand that it took more than just belief to activate the body's mind body healing connection.
Are you still in a wheelchair or using a cane now?
Oh gosh, no pain. Haven't had any pain. Actually, there's pictures of me working out with bodybuilders, lifting insane amounts of weight.
So how long ago were these accidents and falls, and were you in the wheelchair?
The fall was '03. The accident, I can't remember the exact year. I want to say it was 99. It was a couple years prior to that. So I was already kind of messed up. '03 was the accident or the fall. And and basically I was mostly healed '09, but '10 is like, or 2010 was like, I am 100% on my feet because I was still figuring it out. So like I would start doing things that sometimes I'd have that pain shoot back in. So it was a process of figuring out and understanding how to get it to work. So now it's
So,
15 years, 14, 15 years.
so it took about 7 years to get it to where you wanted it to be.
Yeah, about 6.5, somewhere in there ish. It's hard to put a date on it because, you know, I'd feel like I'm doing better and then pain would cut. So it was, but yeah, I got it stuck in this kind of, I meditated for a lot of years and because I thought, because I could get my pain down at times with meditation. So it's kind of like when something kind of works, you do more and more and more of it. So I was like meditation and theta state and delta state and binaural beats and fan and phase frequencies and all of these things. And then I had this experience where a friend of mine, her aunt was dying of lung cancer. And so she called me up and she asked me if I wanted to say goodbye. And of course, you know, I wanted to go say goodbye. So she picked me up and she took me over there. And as I'm saying goodbye to this woman, it hit me. You know, she had been in hospice for several months and she was in and out of consciousness. And I thought, gosh, if this state was so healing, like this is probably what I look like all day. Cause I was like in hours with headphones and hours and hours and hours and hours a day, hours. And I thought, gosh, if this was so healing, then why hasn't she healed yet? Why hasn't anybody in a coma healed? Why do people in hospice? And so that's what it made me like different. I had different epiphanies along the way that said, okay, you need to do things radically different. And that was one of them. So, but I did that for many, many years.
So it's so the work that you do now, like with thermal imaging and all of that, is it all based on the placebo effect and using the placebo effect not as the way that we see it as fake, but actual healing coming from that belief? Like
No,
explain what we need to understand.
absolutely. So basically, I simplified everything and I said, okay, well, how can I see that the mind affects the physical body? Well, emotions. Somebody's embarrassed, their face turns red. Even emojis know that. We have that little red faced emoji on our phone. It knows that. So, and then I thought, okay, well, you know, I'm going to need a lot more than emotions to heal my body. But when you look at it, you go, okay, panic attack, somebody's having anxiety, sexual thought, sexual physical response, different for men and women, but there's an emotion and a physical connection. And then there's also things like widowhood effect or broken heart syndrome, where somebody can die from a broken heart, or scared to death, where somebody can die from being scared. And so I started looking at it and saying, well, emotions can really impact us. And even after surgery, if somebody's in an optimistic state, they can heal much faster. If they're in fear or in anger and upset, cellular proliferation, healing, much, much slower, much higher rate of rehospitalization, complications, all of that just from their emotions. And not only that, but even current research suggests that autoimmune conditions can even be caused by stress. And if we look at it, everything from cancer to autoimmune to colds to everything literally is a stress mechanism. So that's basically what I started doing. Is I said, number one, I said, I can see that different emotions affect the body differently. Embarrassed is different than sexual thought. Widowhood effect is different than panic attack, different emotions. And so that was one key. Another key was that I started looking at the awareness that I said, okay, well, I'm going to look at this objectively. And there are some people who are really stressed, PTSD, who aren't sick. And there are people who are happy, who are sick. How does that work then? And there were a few things. One, it has to really do with what's in the subconscious mind. Number two is that it's a certain combination of emotions. That's the key. And a way to think about it is like if somebody wants to make cake and they have flour and they use, vegan eggs and whatnot, and they create a mixture, they can make cake. But if they just have flour, they can't, right? And so, and different recipe, different ingredients, different recipe. And so that's how I started looking at it and saying, okay, well, now I can see how it's possible for somebody with multiple personalities to have different illnesses when they're in different personalities. They have different emotions, and then they can have some personalities that just have no illness at all. And so that's basically what I started doing, is just saying, okay, there's a combination. I need to identify them. I need to change them. Now, this may seem really simple, but then I started, after I healed myself, I thought, people are going to think this is too simple or it is impossible. And so I started doing it under medical equipment, where I'd show people under thermal imaging who had physical pain, and I'd show them how to use their mind. And literally, you could see on the scan in real time, their pain would go away. And you could also see that it wasn't due to placebo, because, to kind of give you an idea, on these images, what happens is, illness, pain emits heat. So if somebody has a sprained ankle, it can emit heat. If somebody has an infection, it can emit heat. And so thermal imaging picks up the heat signatures of the body at a very advanced level. And so if somebody has neck pain, it detects the heat from that. And I just work with somebody to change their mind, to shift their mindset, specific things in their mind. And as I do, you'll literally see the scan turn from red to green as the pain goes away. However, if I go back in and I mention the negative again, you can see it come right back. So you see, it's not just placebo analgesia or belief, that you can see that their emotions are actually triggering and their mindset are triggering the change. So it's incredible.
So by changing your mindset and making your brain function a certain way, you were able to heal yourself from your injuries and reduce the pain and overcome all of it. Is that right?
Yeah, except for the pain is gone. It's complete.
Gone.
It's gone.
And did you use any medication during that time to do that?
I was on medication pretty much throughout my injury. I was on morphine most days, so different types of morphine. At the end, for the last couple of years, I was on a type of 24-hour morphine, Avinza, which I believe is no longer on the market, but Norco, Neurontin, Vioxx before it got taken off the market for being dangerous, and they say killing people, naproxen, lidoderm patches. I'd have lidoderm infusions also, where I'd go in and they do like a lidocaine drip, and yeah. So I mean, I was doing I didn't care where the answer came from. I just wanted something that was going to heal me.
So those are pain medications, right? So not necessarily healing medications. So in the work that you do, is this mind pain medication, or is there actual healing happening at that deepest level too?
Yeah, like one woman that I worked with had a tumor in her throat.
Mhm.
And basically she had the tumor for several months, tried everything to get rid of it. It wouldn't go away. She was scheduled for surgery. She had another pre-op MRI. They showed the tumor 5 millimeters. You could see it protruding from her neck. She was scheduled for surgery a few days later. Her and I happened to work the day before that. Tumor went away. The ENT was shocked. He said he'd never seen anything like that in 30 years. And he said, he had to cancel the surgery because he said he can't operate on something that's not there. And what's fun is I've also worked with people like people who had low blood volume. So they have to remain supine because their blood is, even with transfusions and all of that, their body's not generating enough blood. And so as soon as they sit up, their heart rate speeds up, speeds up, speeds up, and their blood goes down and they pass out. And who now can fly all over the world, run, walk marathons, all of that, mini marathon, you know, like the turkey trot type of marathon with their family and stuff like that. So yeah, no, the thing is that we all have known that stress affects the body. We've heard that over and over again. I mean, there's even studies at Harvard which show that things like emotional vitality. There was a study, 20-year study that was done by Laura Kuzansky that showed that emotional vitality could reduce coronary heart disease by approximately 50%. Now, why is that significant? Heart disease is the #1 cause of death. Emotional vitality can, what? And so when we start to look at it, we've known that stress affects the body. The thing of it is it takes a depth, because in our culture, a lot of times we have stress management where we try to manage our stress. You know, but we even know what if somebody's really, really stressed, they could have an ulcer. You know, if somebody's feeling like they want to get like something's disgusting, they may want to gag. So we can see these emotions like gagging or stress and ulcer or stress and autoimmune conditions or all of these things. But what about actually changing them? But and I want to say, I make this sound really, really simple, and it is and it's not, because the truth is we also have emotional patterns. And if I get a little technical for a moment, if we look at things like repetition compulsion or reenactments or attachment theory or law of attraction or whatever we want to call it, our patterns breed more of the same. And so somebody may have a pattern of guilt or a pattern of anger or a pattern of hurt or victim. And then it can show up over and over in our lives. So somebody may have like it's well known in psychology, maybe a woman has an abusive father and then leaves him and finds the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, et cetera, et cetera. So not only can our emotions then be there, but then we have the physical experiences that then come with it. And it takes, so it does take a real change and a genuine understanding of changing at our core. And that's really key. And many times we can get stuck in patterns and it perpetuates more and we don't even realize it. And maybe a simple example of this is, you know, somebody may have a pattern of abandonment where they feel abandoned and rejected and abandoned. And then what happens is, fast forward, then they're in a relationship and either they're really needy and jealous and insecure and, oh, why were you with this person? And why were you there? And then they end up ruining it. Or they are hot and cold because then they want to warm, like, and then in which case they don't really create the bond and sustain a bond. And either way, it then ends up perpetuating more of the same. And so it does take a real genuine change. And even when I show it under medical equipment, you know, I've had several case studies published in a medical journal. And even on those, like I'll tell people, okay, you released your pain and you can see it under medical equipment, but you must follow through. You must embody this change. And some people, they get it, they embody it, boom, it's done. The pain doesn't come back. Other people, they may have, you know, a trigger come up, or maybe their wife or husband or whomever may trigger them, or guilt or whatever comes up. And they have to really process it to go, okay, the pain came back. Okay, but at least I know what it's connected to, or the health issue, and then really make the change, because it does take a much deeper change than we as a culture are used to making.
So, I mean, obviously, it takes a while for people to heal themselves of serious injury or some chronic pain. I mean, it took you 6.5 years to get through it. If we have listeners who are struggling with injury or pain or long-term illness or things like that, what would you say that they could do that's pretty easy and simple that maybe they can start right now just from listening to this show?
Absolutely. And by the way, I've seen people who go through my courses or process and whatnot who have had rheumatoid arthritis for years and years, so bad that their feet are swollen, they can't walk, and they're out of pain in 2 weeks. And then are like, yeah, so it doesn't have to take a long time, which if you feel like it's going to take a long time, then of course it could take a long time.
Right.
And we can look at MPD even and see that people with multiple personality disorder can have chronic pain and illness, like chronic neck pain in one personality and not have any in the other, or a different type of pain. So I don't want to put it in anybody's head. It's going to take a long time, because all the time I don't see that being the case. But what I would say is this is, number one, I would say program in positive emotions first, because a lot of times people might say, oh, well, negative emotions are bothering and maybe affecting my health. I wonder what that could be. And then they want to delve right into the negative, which isn't going to be helpful, because you could increase it. And I would say one simple but powerful thing you could do is think about positive emotions, but in a different way. Think about positive emotions as creating positive patterns. Our brains work in patterns. And then when we create a pattern, we create a neural pathway, then it becomes easy to stay happy instead of so much effort to try to do it. Because when we create a shift to heal, our brain has to be able to do it automatically. That's the key. So if we have to think about it, it's not going to work, because our health, we don't have to think about a health issue for it to happen. So it has to be automatic and ingrained. And so shifting into positivity, it can't be an effortful thing. It has to, I mean, yes, it can take effort to establish more positivity, but it has to then become programmed in. And a simple way to think about this is, if we think about the alphabet, we know the alphabet, it's easy. We've memorized it because we do it. Oh, we bring it in over and over and over, and then it's easy. But if every day as kids, we just said, oh, I'm going to think of a bunch of letters. I'm going to think of A, Z, P, we would never memorize the alphabet, and it wouldn't work. And so similarly, people say, well, I'm just going to think positive. I'm just going to think, one positive thing. And it doesn't help create that new neural pathway. Or sometimes what can happen is people will go, oh, okay, I'm just going to focus on just gratitude. But a lot of times people will feel guilty or undeserving or in a stuck spot. And so then it becomes harder, because now they feel guilty. So they go, I'm grateful, but I don't feel like I deserve it. And so I would pick something that's love, or feeling connection with people, or something on that level is what I would focus on, and create it as a new neural pathway. That's, and I can explain more if that's okay. I don't want to, but this is what I did to hack the process. Yeah.
Yeah, to hack the process. So, okay, let me give you an example. We talk about gratitude a lot on the podcast. We start off with gratitude, right? We think that we've done a lot of gratitude journaling, all kinds of things. And that has worked to a certain extent. A couple of weeks ago, I decided that I was having too many negative thoughts. I was too anxious about big meetings, or wondering, when am I going to get that phone call from my client saying, oh my God, my whole life has changed. Like, these things aren't happening enough, and I'd worry about them, or, different things with family life, all of that. And I decided that I was going to use, is it Pharrell Williams, that Because I'm Happy, that song. And I was just only going to use that song. And any time that my brain started to go towards worry, fear, like pointing a finger at somebody else, wondering why not, I was just going to interrupt that pattern of thought and sing that song in my head. And it was the same, not a different happy song, just that song every single time. I cannot tell you, Brandy, I don't know if it's coincidence or what, but the amount of clients that told me, oh my God, this huge thing that's growing in my breast is, I can barely feel it anymore. And they're bringing me referrals, and everything's starting to go, and I'm happier. And it just,
that is in my book, and that I thought we wouldn't talk about, but I thought we even talked about that. Yeah. That's exactly what I do.
Everything completely changed.
Can I make a suggestion on that?
100%.
So if you do it whenever things are off, your brain will then also start to link it together. So not only does it become so initially it'll become a shift, but afterwards it'll become linked together. So it's kind of like, a wedding and then a wedding song. So, or somebody might have like a feeling of pride in hardship. And so what can happen is, anytime something bad happens, then your brain can link up something good is also going to happen. And so you'd want to do it proactively. And that's what's in my book. That's exactly what I teach, is doing exactly that. So that's what I say, to hack the process. So we're going the same place, to hack the process. is actually that's exactly what I did. Is I call it neurotransformational music technique, but it is exactly that: picking one song and amplifying it and bringing it in. And the ones that I used was "Beautiful Day" by U2. So I
Mhm.
used that because feeling good about life, like starting to shift my energy towards life. It's a beautiful day, and then the other one was "Walking on Sunshine and It's Gonna Feel Good" by Katrina and the Waves.
Mhm.
And that's exactly it. So and part of the reason, to your point, part of the reason it was so important is because, so I use the example of the alphabet. To be able to memorize the alphabet, we have to get it in over and over and over again. And similarly, to be able to bring in a positive emotion, we have to get it in again and again and again and again. And that's what's key. And so, and so exactly that. So bringing it in and feeling it over and over and over, and that's to create the new neural pathway. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love
It's in my
that.
book.
Yeah, amazing. And I would think that it's not just like the words in the songs being positive or the beat of the song being positive. That's one thing, but it's also the feeling and emotion that you have towards that that
Yeah,
song. So some right?
yeah. So that's what I
Yeah.
was saying is, for me in this injured state. So when to hack the process, for me in this injured state, for me to somehow access euphoria and happiness and positivity repeatedly every day, over and over and over and over, to get in would have been impossible. And so, like, if we couldn't access the alphabet over and over and over, we would never be able to memorize it. And so
Right.
exactly that. And that's why exactly that song is in my book, is exactly that reason, is because that's how I started using it. And some people, they'll immediately think, oh, I should have a happy playlist. And part of the problem with that is, again, that's like trying to create a whole bunch of things. That's like saying there's 50 different alphabets that you're going to memorize. If you just do, I would always tell people, is just do one or two to create that new neural pathway. And the other thing that's really also key is this, is that research has shown that if you listen to music and you really, really create a strong feeling of excitement with it, euphoria with it, that it also creates a biochemical response. And if you think about biochemistry, it is important for healing, for health, for happiness, all of that. And so it can help also on a biochemical level. So there's so many benefits to it. So, and it may seem simple, but it's, to your point, it's profound.
Right.
The mind and the brain is an incredible tool and can really be used to heal so many different things. And you mentioned your book, and it's called Master Your Mind and Energy to Heal Your Body. You can be your own cure. Brandy, can you tell us where people can learn more about you and grab your book? Because our listeners are probably interested now.
Absolutely. My book is anywhere books are sold, so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and my website is brandygillmore.com, and Gillmore is with 2 L's.
Perfect. So we'll link to that in the show notes at planttrainers.com for our listeners to check you out and learn more about you and what you're doing.
That sounds fun and fantastic. Thank you. And I just have to say, I love what you guys are doing, because let's be honest, if people are eating a bunch of garbage food all the time, or hangry, if people aren't eating a lot of, if you go long periods of time without eating food, you get hangry, and then it makes it hard to actually implement and stay in the positive. So I love what you guys also do. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Oh, thank
Thank you,
you
Brent.
so much. And just, I wanted to put in for the listeners, if they have not seen your TED Talk yet, go to the show notes at planttrainers.com, or search your name for TED Talk, because it is amazing, outstanding, and everybody should see that. So it gave me I told you, it gave me the shivers. So by all means, everybody go ahead and check that out.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Brandy, for being on the Plant Trainers podcast with us.
Thank you so much.